Good evening, everybody. I hope I'm audible clearly. Yeah, okay. So the session 1 is Tap into Success, and it is all about the holistic approach for talent, attrition, and productivity. Thanks, Karthik, for laying a great foundation to a macro view of what the country is going through, the organized sector as such. It was phenomenal data plus insights to, gulp it in the last 10-15 minutes. But here I am with 3 CHRO CPOs, and we will get closer to the ground, like what exactly happens. Till now, the work was difficult. While not too difficult, we were looking for the purple unicorn in terms of hiring, right? In terms of you want like Sarva Gun Sampanna candidate at all the levels. But now the challenges are like, you definitely need the purple unicorn, but you need them to stay. They should love you more than, if they fight the traffic or whatever, they should definitely feel that, yes, I have arrived in office and here I am to do a rocket sing sales. Sorry for my Bollywood references, but yeah, this is like, I just wanted to lay, like, in terms of it requires somebody who is very enthusiastic, coming to office, putting in the great hard work, but more of a brain work, and also deciding to stay back with us, and we, rewarding them with the right compensation, etc., while keeping the people cost in control. But your neighbor might be looking at them because they are the purple unicorns whom they want. So so this is what we all deal, right, every day in and out. So here I am with the 3 gentlemen, and I would like them to first introduce themselves, and I will ask them one personal question. Like, I definitely know you chose HR, but what still drives you to be in this profession? What is like a Monday morning? What is the first thought which comes, like, that drives you to work? Yeah, so I will open the session with you, Janardhanan.
Yeah, Ritu. I think Karthik, you set the stage extremely well. I have a lot of optimism, a lot of numbers there. Now, coming back, my introduction, I have been in the industry for almost 33 years. In the HR profession, as a head of HR for last 12 to 15 years, in HR for last 20 years. I also started my career in sales with Pfizer Limited. So I came up through the Pfizer University. Now, coming back, what motivates me at this point of time? So I'm a bit great. So, contributing. I always continue to maintain that the only power HR can wield is power of contribution. I tell my colleagues, at least demonstrate a willingness to contribute to the business, to people. I think what you call Ulrich and Brockbank talks about those 4 aspects. Employee champion. So we got so much to do. And today technology is really, it's a disruptor. It's a great opportunity. I think we can standardize a lot of things through technology. I think that motivates me and drives me to come to office. Yeah.
Hey, hi. So my name is Bapuji. I'm part of HR with Flipkart, spending about 20-25 years in managing both blue and white collars at different stages of life. So only reason I'm on this side is I came little early. So happy to share with you why I go to work every single day and what keeps me on is maybe an opportunity to help a business leader to succeed. So I count my days, how many people came to me to probably share their problems or make me part of their problem solving maybe team. So that keeps me awake and enthusiastic all the time.
Thanks, Bapuji, and it was wonderful to listen to you, Karthik, and I think you already answered whatever the audience would have in their mind as questions, so well, wonderful. My name is Ravi Kumar, and I look after human resources for Page Industries, and it's been around 26-27 years in HR. So that's a strange question, Ritu. I'm actually thinking, why do I really come to work? Maybe, I go back after this session and decide to change my profession, but,
I didn't mean to do that, I'm sorry.
Okay, the fun part is that HR is a fun job, right? Yes, it is. And I'll agree with Babuji, it's a lot about really working to contribute to solutions, right? So there's a business, and we are part of the business. We have business roles, and I think it's really fun to be able to provide solutions. And it's also like making a product. So you see a solution that you suggested, and it goes into the market, and it's actually being implemented. So it's a lot of fun, Ritu.
Yeah, I do agree. And there is, I will just add, like, there is no, like, everything is out of the paper. Like, in terms of, you can never predict what a person will come up to and, talk about. So it is such an unpredictable thing. You are learning on the go. And that's the beauty of this. There is no monotony ever. Like, every day is new. It is always a day one. I think so that even keeps me going. Okay, so that was a nice warm-up, I think, so we all did in terms of knowing each other and understanding what drives us to work, not literally, but in terms of the work as such. So here is my first question to this panel in terms of, I'm also learning on the go with you in terms of, like taking something out of this conversation. So how much is the human capital investment adding value? Like, now is exactly the time of AOP. And does this go as a strategic thought process first, or is it like the last thing to follow? Maybe from your previous organizations or your current organization or your overall view. So do you think it is an added cost, or it really makes a difference, the human capital investment? Yeah. So we'll start with you, Janardhanan.
So, difficult question, but I have diverse experience. When I was part of an industry which was talking about a product margin or gross margin of 70-75%, I think it was easy to invest in people. So it was more of an investment perspective, not a cost perspective. When you come to the other side on the appliance industry, where I'm there for almost a year, cost is a very important factor. So if you talk about the strategic differentiation, this particular organization, current organization, is basically cost leadership with quality. If we're not able to control costs, we cannot compete in the market. So I think we need to look from a cost perspective. We had been looking from, when I used to be part of Pfizer, we used to take pride when Pfizer was a 20 billion organization, when they acquired a 102 billion organization, biggest acquisition in the global industry, across industries in 2001, followed by another 60 billion of Pharmacia. The investment, so we used to talk about Pfizer used to be the biggest spender of R&D across industries. 10 billion in 2005 was something which is mind-boggling. And, but they're not able to sustain this because pipelines are dry. For me, it is a balancing between investment and cost perspective. But human capital is a very important element in this. And as Karthik rightly said, I think productivity is something which we need to look at. And if we like to look at productivity, we like to look at productivity from an internal perspective, look within, how do we internally benchmark productivity before externally benchmark productivity. As they say in some of the management books, draw in what is left out rather than drawing out what is left in. So, drawing out what is left in rather than drawing in what is left out. So, I think internal perspective is very important. We, as HR, I think we need to understand as to what are the strategic differentiators of the organization in the marketplace. And if we don't, contextualize our HR policies, systems, and process to make the organization win in the marketplace, I think we are not delivering our job. And that's my take on this.
Great.
Thanks.
Yeah, let's hear from you, Bapuji.
It's quite an interesting question, and tried to understand this little bit more from quite some time. So somehow couldn't guess or arrive at some answer, but I kept thinking about it. So I'll just only share my thoughts how I have been looking at it from quite some time. So there is a business strategy, and then there is maybe a growth from 3x to 3x, and then how we do it, ways to do it, and the timeline. So these are all the initial slides. Last few slides, maybe 1 or 2 slides, are about people strategy. So people strategy invariably has a component of maybe having talent and then developing talent and then all the routine things. So the developing talent or investing in making people development agenda as one of the key investments has always been a very interesting topic, and there is no definitive answer in my mind. Is it right, wrong? Then I try to figure out maybe an answer in between. So maybe segment or probably talent into different segments, and maybe skilled, unskilled, or maybe different levels of uniqueness of roles they hold. and then figure out where will be the ROI best, where I should invest, maybe which talent is most critical for my business and where to put my money on. And there are many other roles which probably can continue to be doing routine, regular, probably monotonous roles. So there was also a company where I worked where the founder always believed in getting great things done by mediocre people. That was Reliance for about 10 years I was there. So they always believed in, of course they do have some specific high quality talent for certain roles, but lot of roles are mostly, they prefer to have relatively less or maybe relatively less competent people and probably get best out of them over a period of time. That is where they invest their maximum dollars into. So evolving, but not a definitive answer, but segmentation of talent and then preferring where to develop probably is one approach.
Yeah, Ravi?
Yeah, thank you, Ritu. I personally believe, and I think my own experience, has borne this out, is that there's no separate people strategy and there's no separate business strategy. I know some of you all are smiling in the room, but sounds cliched, but it is true. So there are many examples, at least I've seen in some of my organizations that I've worked in. So for example, in St. Gobain, when you're acquiring another organization, when you make your plans, when you look at the M&A aspects, feasibility, etc., the first thing that used to happen was an HR team would be sent into the, likely potential candidate that was going to be acquired, understand the culture, understand, what's happening there, come back, and then, the others would follow. It would be finance, business development, etc., would move in, and then we look at an acquisition, and does that work or not is what we would look at. So while making a strategy, while making a business strategy, looking at, what to do in the next 5 years, I think there's no question about not talking about people. Some of the more recent examples are, companies which go into tier 2 and tier 3 towns as well. And I think, Karthik, you mentioned a little bit about how India is growing. It's all about tapping talent at these tier 3 towns, for example. I guess Infosys and TCS, etc., even Reliance is doing that these days. And you see a huge number of tech centers coming up in places like Bhubaneswar, for example, which none of us ever thought about. So I think this is part of the strategy, this is part of the thinking of many of our senior leaders. And I think, it's been like this for many, many years. It's not new. It's just us HR folks who think that, there's a separate people strategy. It is not true at all.
Great. So if I have to just paraphrase what you all are agreeing or hinting towards is, while cost is definitely the important driver, it has to justify an ROI to some extent, but a business strategy is actually the people strategy. Because people are the one who drive the business, so you can't think one without the other. So that's a great way to get started. So the second one is I will just take the data from again Karthik's. Thanks Karthik to be coming in front and giving us so much to harp about. So he spoke about that global attrition ranges around 12, 13, 14%, while in India 2021 is an average. Now there would be sectors which would have tremendous, like say in retail, we also have retail. So retail is definitely a very high attrition prone segment. IT is slightly having a downturn, but every engineer would have at least 3 offers in pocket. So that used to be a way. So this, I think so the thermostat around attrition has become a little higher in terms of our tolerance to say 20, 21%, and we say that, we have done a great job. That's how it is. So has the thermostat changed for all of you, over the years, all of you are with, a minimum of 2 decades to 3 decades of experience. Has the thermostat, gone higher? And is there any mantra to rein it back? Yeah. So we can start now the other way around. Ravi, why don't you go first?
I like it when you call it a thermostat. All right, that's interesting. I guess this thermostat changes based on the moods in the boardroom, right? So if the mood is good, then the higher attrition rate is all right. If the mood is bad in the boardroom and like he says, the AOPs are not turning out to be too good for next year, then the attrition is definitely good. But I think it's not about so much about getting used to it. I think there are business cycles, there are different phases that many of us go through in our own organizations. And based on where we are, we either get used to it or we say that, it's too much. So for example, for retail, something like 20 is absolutely okay. The moment I move into a manufacturing organization, 20 is horrible. My productivity comes down because, I'm constantly hiring new staff to perform on the line. So I don't think it has come to a stage where we just accept it. I think it's a question of where we are in the stage and in terms of the phase of the organization or which organization we work for. But for sure, what's happening in India, and I think Karthik pointed out a lot of data, there's a lot of growth. It's exponential growth, and more growth is coming. The younger generation today, and that's where we see most attrition, and I think my colleagues here will agree with that as well, is spoiled for choices, right? And that's one aspect that we all have to come to terms to, I think. And it's not that I accept the 20% as fine, but it's just that I have to make do with that 20% because that's ground reality today with the younger generation. And if I look at what's the culture, for my parents, for example, working in one whole organization the entire life was absolutely normal. For me, this is my 4th organization. And for my daughter, who is probably going to get into a job later this year, she's already talking about, deciding which company to join. I didn't have a choice when I first joined L&T, for example. So these are cultural aspects as well, which are changing. And I think leaving an organization and then coming back to the same organization as well is not looked down upon even today. So attrition by itself may not be such a major issue for business. And I think, as long as in a business person's mind, it's clear that I can manage that aspect up to a 20%, 18%, it should be fine. And maybe that's where the thermostat has moved now.
Great. I think so you called out very well in terms of how the times have changed. So like it is told like our grandparents work for livelihood. Like the bread won't be there on the table if they don't work. For our parents, it was more of a a standard of living, and for this generation, it is like self-actualization. So the EVP has to be constantly tweaked in order to engage that workforce. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Bapuji. So I would like to hear more from you because considering the amount of hirings that you do, would you like to share that data? And that's really something which will have the jaws dropping. Would you like to start with your hiring data and then how attrition pains you?
Yeah, Ritu. So I'll just speak some numbers. So I was fortunate to have worked with large assignments, which gave me opportunity to maybe interact with large number of workforce in hiring, maybe in de-hiring as well. So in multiple assignments which I did, there was opportunity to hire as high as about 10 lakh people a year, and then maybe de-hire about 5 to 6 lakh in that. So it was quite fast and huge churn. So now coming back to attrition is no good, and challenge is it has got all the pros and cons that we all know. But with changing times, the way Karthik was explaining, so one of the point was it's manufacturing to be the next focus area, and we have enough services, and services will continue to grow. But manufacturing is probably here to stay, and probably we need to spend more time around that. But when I started my career, this was exactly opposite. So it's one generation, about 25 years. So we saw complete cycle. So we have enough manufacturing. It is time for us to look at services. So Bangalore is the core of services, IT services, though we need to catch up with many other services, maybe tourism, maybe hospitality. So today, in such a short time, we're again talking, there is an opportunity. China +1 will have an opportunity for us. So the fast-paced times also gives opportunity for growth, and that growth also gives more new jobs coming in as more workforce comes into stream. So there are more opportunities. Coupled with younger workforce, as Ravi says, So when I joined my current company, so I was about 34, 35, and I was the oldest. So they looked at me as, how come this uncle joined our workforce? The average age was around 24, 25, 26. My manager was 15 years younger to me, and he had all the rights to be my manager, including the maturity, which we often think that they may miss. So the workforce has changed, and their aspirations are very, very different. We never imagined not to have work for maybe 1 or 2 months was okay. At least I never imagined my life 6 months job gap is okay. It was never okay. It was taboo. It was not acceptable in family, personally also. But today it is perfectly okay not to have a job, and discover myself for 6 months is perfectly okay. And aspirations, and that drives new exploration for new opportunities, and there are many opportunities. So they keep looking at new learnings, maybe new assignments, new streams. So that also drives attrition. So that comes back to the point where probably reining in attrition is one important role that we do day in and day out, figure out reasons and then try to see how to address those reasons and try to figure out root causes. But the other side is also true, how to make my workplace probably to manage attrition, okay with attrition, how to arrange my maybe process, maybe standard operating process, and make it little more maybe nimble so that I'm okay with attrition, though I don't like it. So very interesting. Yeah.
So yeah, Janardhan, do you have any mantras to help people, rein in the attrition?
So I'll talk about some of the factors. It's again, both of my co-panelists talk about attrition, industry specific. Manufacturing has a certain amount of productivity issue, because I've seen the assembly line, if you've got a hybrid of new talent versus old talent, definitely the productivity and slowing down of the line happens. If you're talking about, so we got stores. Now if we got stores, it doesn't matter. Customer doesn't relate to the person whomsoever is. If you're able to possibly train the person and customer friendly, become customer friendly, there is no, it moves on, life moves on. When I was in the previous industry where a lot of people in sales, consistency is a very important factor. In the customer phase, if the person changes. So I used to keep this particular joke called Sita Gita Sangita syndrome. So this was a one line which I used to use it. So I used to tell about when I used to call a bank, the first name Sita picks up, second name Gita picks up, and Sangita picks up actually. And the customer does not know the resolution of the issue. So there are now those industries, AI are definitely, the chatbots and the AI has definitely resolved issues. So attrition is going to stay as far as many industries are concerned. Aspiration levels of, so today also for an average engineer, MBA graduate, when it comes to global salaries, it should be in the 30th, 40th percentage of the global salaries. So people are seeing the global salaries, so definitely they will be aspirations. But again, it's a lot of responsibility HR to rein in attrition. It's basically, are you binding people to purpose? I don't think many of the workers, many of the people are binding. It's also difficult for them. If you are moving from one company to another to go and contextualize and establish relationship and rapport with the cohorts, etc., is extremely difficult for them. And they don't realize that. I think HR need to have dialogue with these people. See what are you doing? You've got aspirations. But definitely you have to balance it out. Otherwise you're going to lose out in the long run. And that is something which is very important. If I had to give, there is no mantra, but I would say that there are certain things which can happen. So Gallup says that people leave managers. But if people leave managers, in fact, these managers training, who's responsible? HR is taking responsibilities. If managers are not standardizing the way they are coaching or developing their people, today you got nudges, you got a lot of technology where you can standardize all this coaching and development puts. So I think if you are able to balance between And there are a lot of channels in terms of continuously engaging employees. A lot of channels in terms of, maybe 2016 McKinsey came with the first employee experience platforms. Today you got Amber, you got state-of-the-art technology which are basically measuring the energy, engagement, experience of people. So if you are able to do that and get early on signals is what makes the meaning to the environment, to the workers and the people, I think we will be able to manage a lot on attrition. So many people are detached from the company, they are isolated, doing the jobs, going back to the three Mason story, I think all are doing brick on brick. Yeah, so that's a problem actually.
Great. So basically, I think so I will paraphrase, it's like having a purpose, like showing people the purpose, that's the main thing, and managers have to be equally invested in, nurturing the talent and all. While I slightly differ, it is like a co-responsibility, like a parents, like both coming together for nurturing the child is exactly the same thing. The manager as well as the HR professional or a talent partner has to come together and look after the well-being and, seeing that the workforce is engaged. Otherwise, it is very daunting for only the CHROs to be responsible for that attrition number. I think so it is a very important to define it well. I would just add, like, attrition, while it like 20-21%, but the sunken cost nobody talks about in terms of the hiring cost, training cost, the amount of the business impact it has. At a senior level, if there is an attrition, it definitely even impacts the organization strategies for some times and for sure. So I think so this is like thing. Yeah, but let's move to the next one, which is like getting a little deeper. So we spoke about talent development, we spoke about attrition. Now the third part is like, end of the day, we started somewhere around that, like return on investment, cost. So your people budget or the cost of your compensation keep on growing, and it is much higher than the world rate again, because like you look at average increment in US or Europe, it is like 3 to 4%, while India is always hovering 9 to 10% on an even in a difficult year as such. So the people cost is bound to go high. If you do not travel along with this number, you are bound to have attrition, and then it is a double whammy, because people will leave you and you come back, you again start from the square one. So this is a premise. So how do you ensure the productivity? Because you are hiring good talent, you are paying them well, you want to engage them, you are trying to show the purpose, but then end of the day, how do you get the productivity? Like exactly 1 metric ton of cement requiring 100 people versus 1,000 over here. Definitely the automation and things will be influencer, but let's look at this number. And I think so definitely, yes, we have a problem in hand, but what are your organization views? What are your views? How do you look at the productivity? Is it the white elephant in the room who nobody's talking about? Yeah, so we can start with Bapuji. Like.
Oh yeah, so productivity is a very, very interesting and a very amorphous topic. So I'll just share 2 of my experiences. So I was working in an US company, and so it was one of the best in this industry. The name is Monsanto, so they are well known in the agri industry. So all that they said is to their employees, just come and do what you like and do it the best way, best possible way. So we'll get best out of you. That any which ways will take care of the cost. So you will give the best innovation or maybe the best output. That was one set of thoughts. And I also worked in a Japanese company, Honda. So all they said is that you just come and do what I say, thank you. So 2 different approaches. And both were somewhere arriving at the same goal, probably getting best out of their talent, which essentially means maximum productivity. So maximum productivity has different definitions, and each org at different contexts of time maybe takes different definitions of productivity. One of the appealing for me, one always in the current role is also, if maybe it is little away from the traditional thought process, if I am doing exactly same as what I was doing, probably I am not entitled for increment. So now it's a boardroom repeated debate, right or wrong, maybe inflation, maybe cost of living, multiple things. So if I am repeating the same year, then probably I am not contributing enough, or probably I am not getting best out of myself. So that is where I leave you with. Maybe I'll join again. So maybe others can also add.
Yeah, Ravi, would you like to add on?
Yeah, thanks, Ritu. I think, yes, it is an amorphous subject, and I think it has different meanings for different people. But I think the productivity topic is something that all organizations grapple with. We were just discussing, Karthik and I, that it's a strange thing that it happens in India, and productivity in other parts of the world is slightly different. You could do whatever 100 bags of cement with X number of people in India, and it's X minus something else in some other country. But I guess it's got a lot to do with, like he said, what the Japanese say, there's a certain style of functioning. And if that gels well with the workforce, then I think you get whatever you need. May or may not work in today's situation, or may or may not work in certain situations as well. So I think productivity is best when it is mapped to the environment, mapped to the situation. And possibly what works in Japan doesn't work in India. What works in India definitely doesn't work in the Middle East. And what works in the Middle East definitely doesn't work in the US. And I think this is something that all of us need to understand, especially global organizations. Many of us do work in global organizations. And I think what is a template in the US is actually applied in terms of productivity to India. And I think this is a major, major fallacy. And I think the sooner we realize that, I think the better it is. Coming to some examples, I think some of these in terms of what even our colleague talked about, what the French do or what the Japanese do, and what certain industries do, like car makers. It's always great to connect it to why you're doing it, right? So why am I working in this role? Why am I on this production line? What is the final product? And what am I going to get out of it? So if I'm able to answer these questions as an employee, then I think the productivity topic is a little easier. It's not something that I need to preach as an organization. If these aspects are clear, then my employees will actually give me much better productivity. So we've seen this in different organizations. Even what I've seen is a line where we have removed the supervisors, right? And it's a very normal Japanese concept apparently, but in India never been practiced. We always think that you need a boss on top of you to help you get better productivity. Not so true. In fact, the people on the line finished their work an hour before the shift, and they came to us saying, what do we do next? Because we don't want to go and hang out somewhere because it disturbs other lines. And we don't want to be going out because you're going to pay us less because we left before the shift ended. So it's very interesting. It's a concept that no one ever thought about, but it's also part of the culture of that place. That people are there because they know what to do. They don't need someone telling them what to do. And then there is a number that is given to them as a target for a daily production, for example, X number of vehicles or whatever. And then you actually reach that or even surpass that. Because there's a certain pride in doing it. I also know why I'm doing it. I also know what my customer will benefit if I do 10 more vehicles every day as compared to the regular shift. What do I get out of it as my incentive if I'm clear about that as well? I think then this topic is actually taken care of.
Wow, great.
So I'll also add one more point to the productivity. There are two phases of productivity. One is capitalistic view, maybe other is the socialistic view. So with every, it's always inversely proportional. As we improve on productivity, especially in semi-skilled and unskilled category, So those many less people will get employed. So that is a other extreme socialistic approach of productivity. So we had an experiment wherein we increased the productivity of sorting and grading people to an extent where they increased it by about 2.5x. That essentially led to a situation where we removed about 30 to 35% of the workforce, especially in tier 2 and tier 3 towns where most of the new warehouses and logistics companies are operating. So that is the other side of the socialistic approach of the productivity.
Great. Janardhanan.
So if I can add something on Gyan and Vigyan on this, because Bhagavad Gita says that Gyana Vigyana Triptat Makuda Stovjirindhya. So what I'm saying is, when it comes to conceptual aspects of productivity, I think HR has to look at the 4 pillars of an employee, of HR delivery. First is selection integration of the employee. Second is basically aligning people, contextualizing skills and capabilities, and recognizing, rewarding KPIs, etc., etc. Third is the culture and environment where people can excel. I think that is where managerial coaching, all factors. The fourth aspect, I would say, that is the developing people, where you got a career talent pipeline, you got a career ladder, etc., etc. So these definition 4 pillars of HR delivery is very important. See, when it comes to language of productivity, HR has a big role to play. My experience is, matured organizations have already this language set in. So I go back to my first organization wherein we had been embedded, we ingrained on 9 core values and 6 leader behaviors. 6 leader behaviors are these 9 core values in action done by the managers, demonstrated by the managers. So what happened is there was already this language was set in. On the other side, when I went back to another organization which has just acquired a business, I know that the business directors were looking for shortcuts. And I had to confront, because what they did is very easy for them to add a new territory, add a new few distributors and this one and bill. So I started asking in the board meeting, are you billing or building? When it comes to new products, are you building or building? So people are taken aback, and I had to confront. And I got into a collision course for some time. I remember in 2013 when I went back to the first meeting with managers there, they had superficially achieved their targets. They stood up. We are an MNC now. Our rewards and recognitions are not enough for this one. I told we are MNC in the making. We had been acquired by an MNC. We are MNC in the making. I had to tell this. Where people are not settling down, I had to tell this. अभी तो पाराजी मंदन शुरू किया है, आपको कल्पवृक्ष मिलेगा, कामधेनु मिलेगा, अमृत भी मिलेगा, बट उसके पहले विष जो आएगा मैं अकेले नहीं पीऊंगा, आप लोगों को एक ही साथ में पिएगा, पीना पड़ेगा. And people had to settle down, because that was the fact. Because I know we cannot have a strategy of robbing Peter and paying Paul. Many organizations do this. There are employees who are bottom 20% of the employees who are basically draining the top 20% of the employees, and they are piggybacking. So this robbing Peter and paying Paul became a language which I continued to. So I started measuring a productivity for each business unit and manufacturing unit wherever I worked in terms of what is the threshold productivity, break-even productivity for each business. So it was basically for the CFO to do it, but I had to go out of the way to do it. And I used to maintain for hiring, I used to have P&L for each business. I told, see, I cannot hire new people in this business because you're bleeding the business. So many territories are bleeding. So believe me, when I paid 1,000 people in a business unit, non-profitable, went into from profitable to bleeding business, I had to tell them that you don't deserve anything more than 600. So next 7-8 months, I had to go into retrench people. Because at the end of the day, social is important. At the end of the day, company cannot stay in the business unless you make profits. You are responsible to everybody is a stakeholder, employees are a stakeholder, you got your investors are stakeholders, communities are stakeholders, so you cannot bleed a business. I mean, we got examples of the new generation companies like Byju's where 2,000 crore revenue and 4,000 crore losses. I mean, it's all shocking. I think these are non-sustainable models. I think we cannot have a non-sustainable model. So when it comes to productivity, my experience is that it is the language of productivity has been seeded across the organization. That is very important responsibility to HR, because line managers typically don't do it. And one of my experiences when I did it, I talk about internal benchmarking. I created around 7 questions, put my team in terms of mapping. So there had been people, he was talking about an average talent, committed talent. The committed talent, the core of the organization we'll have to measure what makes them successful in the same context. Different managers have different style. And today's problem with organizations is that you got managers from X company coming in, Y company coming in, Z company coming in. So the aligning is not happening because you got different cultures persisting in the same organization. It's so difficult for you HR has to align people. HR has to, ensure there's one unique way of doing things in your company. And you should be the champion for one unique way of doing things. What makes you successful here? How do you contextualize? So that is part of your induction piece. So what I did is 7 questions were created and we mapped around 20% of the top employees. And believe me, I got 17 critical success factors in the previous organization. That 17 critical success factors, when we rolled down, that as the training yardstick, that everybody aligned to this, I think organization has a pivot point. That pivot point, when we develop employees, we had seen a 30% improvement in productivity. The average performance went up by 8 percentage points. And the growth of each of these employees grown by 22% additional delta growth. I think that was my experience. So that's the GAN the began. Thank you.
So I think it is like as an HR professional, you need to know the business numbers as or better than the CFO in order to challenge the things happening, and then go back and question the things. I think so. That's what I get from you, and I think so. There is interesting thing in terms of a lot of cultural thing, like what works in Japan will not work here, and what works here doesn't work there. I think so within our own country, we have, like north, south, east, west, and then again say in south, the 4 states, and then again if you go to Karnataka, North Karnataka, South Karnataka, coastal Karnataka. So there is so much of a diversity with this, the entire workforce, that I think so, that keeps the profession so interesting. So I think we are at the very fag end, but maybe a quick one in terms of from your personal stories, anything that you remember around, or you would have contributed towards talent development or creating talent pipeline. Any references from your past, any story to share, but maybe just 1 minute for each one of you.
The biggest experience I had was in Reliance Retail. So retail was a sunrise industry, and we hired huge number of people, and they were expected to do very, very simple things, just facing customers and probably managing the stores in the front end and maybe managing supply chain in back end. So in 10 years, so all the people who joined probably at very entry level roles, maybe grown to store manager level, then to regional manager, area manager. So that is one of the biggest stories probably in the recent times in an industry, which created huge number of maybe upskilled people from a very entry level. So probably largest of them maybe about 8 lakh people who are into that industry. So that was an experience where I was part of that, and it was an amazing feeling that moving from minimum wages to somewhere in the range of, let us say, general manager level is a great satisfaction story.
Janardhanan, would you like to go next?
Yeah. Again, sorry to use 5 very important terminologies which continue to resonate this one. When it comes to talent development, we need to look at resources which are aligned, integrated, strategy consistent, related and relevant. These are 5 terminologies which I'll continue to work around. And my experience is basically don't develop people on a gamut of skills. Look at relevant, what is contextualized to the organization, and do it. develop people to a threshold level of competencies before differentiating these factors. You know, if you go back to the talent pipeline, Ramcharan and daughter talks about this particular aspect. Every turn is like a turn in a pipeline. So we are talking about the work values is very important. The work values of the previous role and the work values of the new role are extremely different. Then comes the time applications. Where do you apply time and effort? So I think this is where I work around. And then the skills. Skills, my language about skills is काम करते हो सीखेंगे, जो काम करते हो नहीं सीखेंगे काम नहीं कर रहा है. This is this one. So basically, if you're talking about the average talent which is coming into companies, you know, if you look at conceptually at SL2, now the enthusiastic beginner, low competence is high commitment. If he is not transitioning from low competence and low to some competence and while maintaining the commitment, I think the person is not learning on the job. Now, if the person is not learning on the job, then it becomes rotten talent. I think we need to continue to measure the transition of talent and capability.
Yeah, so I think so we just have a short time
sure.
left,
I'll
so
keep
maybe we'll end
I'll
with
keep
Ravi.
it very short, Ritu. So I was working with a large healthcare organization before this, and we had two very large sales teams. One was focusing on doctors, and there was the other one focusing on pharmacies. And at some point, you know, business requirements, we wanted to really look at one team and maybe a one-stop shop for customers. So we actually looked at the Gallup strengths for each and every person, right? Though these teams were large, it took us a long time. By the time we were able to map the strengths, it was already COVID time. Interestingly, we actually discussed this with the entire two sets of teams in a town hall, and we said, look, we are mapping these strengths. You know your Gallup strengths by now, and we want you all to work with each other. And in the end, it is going to be one team. It's COVID time. Do you all still want to do this, or should we do this later? We can park it for a year or after the pandemic. And interestingly, all the sales teams actually got back saying, no, we want to do this now. It's quite interesting. I'd love to learn what the other guys do. Maybe it's a skill that, you know, I could pick up, and maybe that could be useful after the pandemic, because it's a healthcare company and these guys understand how pandemics work. So very interesting, you know, time. Of course, it's a much longer story. I'll save it for another day. But it is possible that you bring two sets of people together who then help each other when they go out and meet customers. Mm-hmm. And in the end, we actually ended up with a team, which I assume is still there, who has both capabilities, and they still work as one when they go to two different customers.
Wow. So I have a small story to share, and this is from Cadbury's, the first organization. I joined there. 2005, I was just out of college, joined them. We had a target of a VRS, and this was in Thane, like those who are from Mumbai would know. So the real estate would be more costlier than the years of contribution from the chocolates. And we had to lay off people. The remaining ones were there. But the union came and told us, saying that give us a target and we will beat it in terms of comparing to any other location. And this factory survived for further 6 years, and that's what is productivity. And that was the union driving the productivity. So we have a lot of, I think, the stories amongst us and in the panel and people here. We are all over here, and maybe during the dinner, let's catch up and have good talks over these shared stories and conversation. Thank you, and yeah, please guide us back. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I would like to request everyone to stay back for a moment. Requesting Mr. Bala Subramaniam A, VP and Business Head TeamLease, to join me on stage to present a small token of appreciation to all the participants. Mr. Janardhanan Narayan Swami. Mr. Ravi Kumar. Mr. Bapuji, Chikkanagappa. Miss Ritu Moitra. So I would request you to stay back for a quick group photo. Bala is requesting.